Well, Nicole's already up on her way, so we have Saskachawan.
So I had a look at the topics that were suggested for the dates, and I thought I would actually kind of cover everything, but do it on a narrow focus. And I took the scrub room pilot program that we did this year in Saskatchewan. And I just thought I'd run you guys through our pilot and kind of how it all came together. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the successes and failures that we had with that program and how we came up with picking our projects and doing our project selection. And then just give you a bit of a flavor for preservation culture in our ministry and how when you throw a new tool at people, kind of how that culture sort of responds to it. So this is our scrub room that we purchased. This was a surprise to me that this was happening. When I came back from the last meeting last year, I had pitched the idea of scrub rooms as something that might be a good fit for our maintenance crews. So our operations executive, gave that some thought, and I thought that maybe might be a good idea. But of course, there was no funding to bring on a program. And then in about January, they found out they had a little bit of extra money in our equipment budget, so they went ahead and bought a broom, and then one day I just got an email saying, this broom's showing up, Nicole, you better put together a program so we use it. So I thought, okay. So that was a good problem to have. So for those of you that haven't, maybe not familiar with what a scrub broom is, so we use it for two different applications. So here we've attached the broom to the back of the oil distributor. And here it's really helping us, when you're applying that emulsion, it helps you scrub the oil down into the cracks. And then the other thing you can use it for, and this is something that was actually proposed by one of our district managers to try out. We do a lot of Rejuvenator Fog Seals, and with that treatment you spray the oil on and then you're using a blotter sand on top. So he thought, well, why don't we try scrubbing the sand into the surface. So that was, and actually after he suggested that, we looked around to see what other people are doing, and that's actually something that is a common practice that folks do. So a little bit of project selection. So we're looking for the scrub seal projects, we're looking for something that's a cracked up pavement. And for our Rejuvenator projects, we're looking for something, so this photo, it has a treated with a CRF emulsion with a Rejuvenator in it on the left, and then you can see right next to it the untreated. So we're looking for a surface that has kind of oxidized, maybe a bit of raveling and some stone loss. And we've been working on using our condition data to help us find these projects, find our seal coat and our Rejuvenator projects. And so using the data that comes off the LCMS sensor system, we're getting pick-out numbers from the sensors. And then we're also getting all of our cracking information. And we've built this surface condition index that rolls that up into a number for us, and depending what number it's at, we're then able to find where good candidates are based on our condition data. And that seems to be working really well for us. The pick-out counts that system does are actually quite good and is a really good indicator of what you're going to find when you go out to the field. That's been something we've been working on a few years, and it's working good for us. So of course, once you've kind of gone through the condition data and you kind of have some projects selected, then the next step is find somebody that is willing to get shot out of the cannon and try out the scrub broom. So we actually had a fairly good uptake on it. We have a number of our crews that have been doing the Rejuvenator treatment for quite a while, but it's very siloed in the province. There's really only 2 districts doing it. Those 2 districts got on board right away, and then we wanted to see that knowledge got transferred in other spots, and we thought, well, this is a good way of doing it. Our operations executive threw about $1.6 million at me and said, go find some projects. And we want to see projects in those districts that haven't tried this stuff out yet. So see if you can entice them by waving a bit of money in front of them. And so that worked out. We ended up with 11 different projects all over the province and 6 districts, 13 maintenance crews. So it was a lot of people to try to kind of coordinate and transfer information around. We had 1 project manager, and he had 2 engineering interns working with him, and then just going out and working with the crews to deliver these projects. So we got started around the middle of June, and I think today they should be finishing up on the last project. So that's kind of what we tackled. A few takeaways in terms of kind of culture and things that I learned. I was sort of the coordinating end of things and planning the projects, and then the project manager would kind of check in with me during the summer, just let me know how it's going. And really, if you've worked with one maintenance crew, you've worked with one maintenance crew. They all have their different flavors and quirks and strengths. So we learned that really, really quickly. What's really important is to build knowledge as you go and take it along with you to the next project. And the devil is in the details. So this is our project manager. This is Sean. So Sean was great. He was kind of the glue for the project. And so he was able to go from project to project and kind of get things organized, ordering the oil. Right away, we had some issues with some of the aggregates, so he learned right away to go, make sure the aggregate that they had lined up for the project was going to work, and some of those kinds of things. So this is where we started. We had kind of a sandbox site where we could go and just play with the broom and try out different application rates and different types of aggregate. So we laid down a piece that would be what we traditionally do with our crews. They do a graded aggregate seal using a high float emulsion. So we just use the same application rates. And then right next to it, we did the same thing, just with the broom added on behind the distributor. So you can imagine, for those of you who have experience with using scrub brooms, the oil application rate was just way too much. And so we had oil sort of spilling off the ends of the brooms. So you can kind of see it had sort of slopped over to the edges there. So we dialed back a bit on the application, and then the other thing we did is we turned off some nozzles on the end of the spray bar, and that ended up giving us a nice application of oil. And then this is what we use to spread with. We're not using a chipper spreader, we're using our hydro drum trucks. So there's a drum in the back of the truck there, and it's spreading. So when you're spreading sand, they're used to spreading their graded aggregate, and they do quite a bit higher application rates. But with the sand, you can go to a lower application rate. So the operators were actually having a bit of a hard time with that. And at times they had to go back over that a few times because they didn't get quite enough on, and then you've got the tires sort of picking stuff up, and so we kind of had a mess in a few spots. So right away, one of the crew chiefs, this is him, he's kind of standing there sort of coaching out the side of the window for the truck driver. They kind of got experienced enough that they could lay that at a nice even rate. Because there's no ground speed adjustments on that equipment. It's basically however fast he's driving, that's how fast, what your application rate is going to be for your sand. So there's some tricks there to work out. So this is a photo. So we have Kenny, our equipment oiler operator. And then in the middle is Lawrence, and the guy in the white shirt under there, that's Wayne, and they're the two crew chiefs that helped us out with the first pilot section. So we had a lot of people out there, and sort of, they're standing there kind of looking at, how this thing works, how it looks, and just sort of tossing lots of ideas around. Right away, they were like, we just don't have enough oil here. We don't think it's going to hold on to our graded aggregate. They figured we're probably going to lose those larger rocks. Just flicking some of the larger rocks into the oil, we could see we're probably not going to get the embedment we need. We did do a short chunk, and sure enough, after a few weeks when we went back, we had lost all the larger rock. But based on that, we ended up switching to a smaller sized, more of a chip aggregate. So it's probably about a 1/4 inch. I think it's a 6 millimeter chip. And that stuff worked really well for us. So as we went, Sean would take lots of videos and pictures, and we have an internal Facebook page with our ministry. And so he would throw up stuff on there. So that was kind of nice, because he said as soon as he started doing that, when he finished one project and went to the next, the guys kind of had a feel for what was coming, because they had been on there watching. So social media helps. Sometimes this is a good way of kind of using it to sort of share, and then they'd get on there and make comments and stuff. So these are a few photos from our Rejuvenator Fog Seal project. This was our North Battleford crew, and they're on Highway 16, which is one of our major highways. These guys were a pleasure to work with. They had never done a Rejuvenator Seal project before, but very experienced operators. And right away, they understood the problem of trying to get that lighter sand application rate on the road. And they came up with a scheme where they had, if you can see the white half-ton truck there, he's actually a pilot for the truck drivers. He's kind of like a pace car. So he was driving ahead of them so they could see him in the rear mirror. And they were just going at his pace, and then they could kind of line up with him as well. So that worked really nice. This was not the best. This was a long day, this day. So what happened here is this was our first load of CRF oil, and they got going, and then they had some mechanical issues with the distributor. So it went down at about twice the application rate that you normally would apply. So we stood around for quite a few hours before we got the break and to happen before we could start blotting. So we were there for probably 4 or 5 hours, Also, when the stuff was coming out, it's quite light, like it's quite a lighter oil. There was just a little bit of a crosswind, and so we had traffic passing in that passing lane, and so they were just getting coated with a nice light mist of oil on all the vehicles. So the district phones were busy for a few days after that. So another, I guess, bit of a miss here. I don't know if you can see that. I got this text on my phone a few days later, and so this is a picture of the broom, and they were scrubbing sand that day into a CRF project, and you see all the rock all over the place. So yeah, we got a bad pile of sand. So they had got a really good price on some sand, and well, there was a reason for that. So yeah, it had a bunch of rocks and stuff in it. So after that, they just kind of walked away from that pile and went into a new pile, and everything was good again. Yeah, so this is kind of what some of the final results look like. On the right there, that's one of our scrub seal projects. And we ended up not doing very much of the scrub seal because we needed that smaller chip aggregate. We didn't have much of that sourced. So we actually only did, I think, about 2 lane kilometers of it. We were originally planning on doing 54. They had placed our graded aggregate seal aggregate out there for that project, so we ended up just doing like one short piece of it. And then we actually ended up, we're going to defer one of the projects to next year so we can get aggregate in place for it. And then on the far side is the darker lane there. It's a CRF treatment that was done the day before, and it's all been blotted, and I'm not sure if they even swept this one or not. I think they would have swept it, yeah. And then you can see them scrubbing the sand in on the other side. Any questions?
Nicole, did you roll the scrub seals with a rubber tire roller?
We did. I think it was a mix. Sometimes it was a rubber tire roller, and some was a steel drum. I'm not sure. Rocky, do you know what they would have rolled with on the highway? On 13 with rubber? Yeah, okay, rubber tire roller. There
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And we used to, sometimes it was dependent on the crew, we used to roll the blotter sand into the CRF, but because the scrub room does such a nice job of really spreading the sand out and pushing it in, we didn't need to do that at all on these projects, so thanks.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.